what I want to do is move on to John, him from the UK, who wants to talk about what resurrection means. All right. So, John, you are on with Jimmy and Sofia. What can we do for you? Hey, John, you're on with Jimmy and Sofia.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Oh, hey,
Hi.
What's going on?
Yeah, speak from across the pond. So thank you for inviting me. I've come on behalf of Richard, who I've had a few conversations with on TikTok, but the character limit stops us from talking properly. So he invited me to join you quite a while ago, to be honest. But I've been so busy, I just haven't got my
Great. Great.
Here I am. So
Glad you're here.
I mean, that's kind of a headline of really the resurrection thing. That only came about because I heard you talking to some other guy about resurrection. And I just wanted to point out that there's a lot of misunderstanding about what resurrection actually means. I mean, when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, that wasn't resurrection. That was bringing him back to life. So Jesus didn't come back to life, because if he come back to life, he would have had to die again at some point later on in his life, as we all do. He came to new life. He was resurrected back to his original deified position with the Father. And for a short time before that, he was on earth, speaking to people, eating fish. So I know there are issues there. But he wasn't like back to life as a human being. It's not a case of just coming back to life and walking around again. So I just wanted to make that important point about what the resurrection actually means.
Okay.
It's a regeneration to a completely new kind of existence.
Okay, so what are the implications of that then? Because you're sort of mentioning that it's not just human body anymore. It's this deified different kind of body. What are the implications of that difference?
Well, the implications are, first of all, that Jesus came from heaven and was, although born of a woman, and therefore had earthly substance in his humanity, his true nature was actually divine, because he went back to the Father. As he said to his disciples, I am returning to my Father to prepare a place for you. And the other implication is that as a Christian, my belief is that I am both simultaneously now and at some point in the future. I have to be very careful with my words here, because we live in such a demythologized age that if I say things like go to heaven, it suggests this sort of odd place somewhere that I'm going to go to when I die. But I more think of it in terms of my whole self, my whole human nature has been resurrected by accepting Christ as the resurrected human, so that I will then rise with him. So it's a kind of a primordial, traditional, sort of mythological, I don't know what sort of adjectives to use really, but
that sounds very vague, and it sounds like almost, well, it's kind of true. I mean, it really doesn't give us any answers. In fact, it departs from what we've been presented in the Bible so much that it leaves it so open for interpretation, because that's what you would need to do in order to make it work, right? We have already seen how, the Bible is wrong in so many ways. Let's take, for example, when Jesus was talking about going out and spreading the word, right? So he said, surely not a generation will pass in Israel before the second coming. He also said that you should go out and try and spread the word to all of the suburbs of Israel, if you will, but you won't have time to reach them all, because the second coming will surely come before you get to finish that. I mean, we've seen that that's not true, right? We know now that Moses probably didn't wander in the desert for 40 years, because it only takes like 6 days to walk across the whole desert. We have technology that allows us.
That's kind of the point of the story, though, Jimmy.
To measure that. But hold on. Let me just explain. So as we see these stories fall apart, we have to kind of come up with these new inventions, these new descriptions, right? And I think that's what you're doing a little bit. And I don't think that you're the first one. You know, there are a lot of people that reinvent the message of God because it really doesn't comport with reality. I mean, heck, how many sects of Christianity do we have? I don't know. I'm going to throw a wild number. I don't know, 200? I mean, it is probably 200. And then there are, let's not forget, religions that splinter off of each other. I've said it many times. You know, Christianity is not all that different from other religions. You know who else was half human and half divine? Heracles. And he was around, I don't know, 500 to 700 years prior to Jesus. So there's an influence that could have taken place there, you know, and somebody probably came up with Jesus to explain this demigod lifestyle or this demigod story, because the other one didn't work anymore. And here you are following in those footsteps. That's my take on that. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, I'm kind of with C.S. Lewis on this one. This idea of the sort of primordial idea of resurrection, that it's a universal thing that pretty much everybody in the world kind of has a concept of. I mean, even in Hinduism, the idea of the supreme personality of Godhead, the notion that there is something other than ourselves, I think is part of the human psyche. And the reason we have all these global religions is because we have different ways of expressing that. And as a Christian, in a sense, I choose to, obviously because I've been brought up with it, and I don't deny Richard Dawkins' point that,
forgive me. I just want to. I just need to comment on that point. Did you choose Christianity?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You did. So you just said you were brought up with it.
Yeah, what I mean is I was brought up with it, so I know the knowledge of Christianity, but I went away.
So were you born to Christian parents in a Christian country?
Yeah, I was.
Well, how convenient. You know, I mean, from the ages of
I was just about
when
to
you were
that point, Jimmy. Can you if you let me finish what I was going to say?
All right, you're right. Go ahead.
Yeah, I understand Dawkins' point. You know, that if you're born in India, you're probably going to be a Hindu. If you're born in Arabia, you're probably going to be a Muslim. If you're born in Czechoslovakia, you might be an Odinist. If you're born up in Norway, you know, I get that point. I get that he says that. What Dawkins forgets is that people have their own mind when they reach 18 years old. And I think that if you're going to send somebody out to the ocean, you don't let them go out there with nothing. You give them a map. Now, having looked at that map, they can then decide whether they want to follow it or not. They can still reject it. You know, we get people who think the Earth is flat. You know, they've been brought up with the global Earth all their lives.
No.
And suddenly they think it's flat. So
I'm sorry, Michael, but you know what? It's not that easy to reject. It's not that easy. When you're 18, you're still very much dependent on your family. You don't want to be looked at as an outcast. You might need them financially, right? You are probably raised in a society that would consider you different if you decided to be, an atheist or something else. I deal with that. I'm 41 years old, and I deal with being the other in my own family, you know, and it's just at some point I decided I wanted to sever the things that I had been given before I was sent out on the ocean because they didn't make sense to me. But you know what? The one thing that I was given because my parents got it from their parents, and so on and so forth for probably 1,000 years. Who knows? Who knows how far it goes back? But the point is, I looked at these people that were giving me food and security, and, you know, I'm sure you've heard this argument. They gave me shelter. They were big. They were old, you know, so I knew that they had done something right in life. Plus, they were giving me everything I needed. What they're saying must be correct. And that's how you end up with this idea that, yep, Christianity is the way to go. And I think, did we lose John? Or John, are you still with us? All right, so I think we lost John. I don't know what happened here. I knew he was calling from over the pond. And, you know, Sofia, I'm sorry if I took that and like kind of bogarted that.
That's okay.
I wanted to get back to you. So sorry. You were like, you had some thoughts and please share.
Simply that we can say that we have these independent minds, and to some degree it's true. We do at every age. I've never met a toddler who doesn't seem like an extremely independent person in their own way. But we are formed to such a great degree by the cultures and the mentalities around us that to change our minds about something as vital and organizing in our life as religion, we have to put ourselves into a mindset that our brains genuinely have not learned how to operate within. So even when I was a critical thinker when I was a Christian, I wasn't somehow dumber than I am now, but the perspectives that I had and the arguments that I knew and knew how to make, those were all from within a Christian context. So unless I was exposed to entirely new ways of thinking, I would not have been able to question those with a fully independent mind. And some people may argue that I currently don't have an independent mind because I became an atheist. And so, you know, the devil and all that. But I remember trying so hard to make this all make sense and applying every ounce of logic I could. I read all the C.S. Lewis, just like John was just quoting. And as soon as I was looking at it in a different light, without already believing that this was true, it became untenable. And that was the first time I really looked at it independently. So we can say we have independent minds, but context determines a lot of how we think of things. I'm an American, I'm a woman, I'm white. All of those things inform how I look at the world.
Oh, yeah. Very well said. I have nothing to add to that. I thought that was great. And you know what? I really liked John's call. So thank you, John, for calling in.